Hey everyone, welcome back to Steve's View. I'm glad you're here because today we're diving into one of the most complex and controversial stories in global politics right now. It's about President Donald Trump, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, and what might just be the biggest test yet for America's role as a global superpower. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, oh great, another Ukraine discussion, stick around because this one's different. We're going to look past the sound bites and social media outrage and really ask, what does Trump actually want from Zelensky? What does Zelensky want from America? And most importantly, what does this all mean for us, the American people? Let's start from the top. When Donald Trump met Volodymyr Zelensky recently, it wasn't just another handshake for the cameras. It was one of those moments that defines global politics, the kind where two men with totally different worldviews collide. Zelensky arrived desperate for reassurance. He's leading a country that's been fighting off a Russian invasion for more than 3 years. Ukraine has lost thousands of soldiers, millions of citizens have been displaced, and the economy is hanging by a thread. He came to Washington hoping that the United States, still Ukraine's biggest backer, would stand by him no matter what. But Trump came to the table with something else in mind. He's been very clear about one thing. He doesn't want endless wars. In his view, the U.S. has spent too much money, lost too many lives, and played the world's policeman for far too long, and it's time to stop. That's been his brand since 2016. America first, he calls it. But when you apply that slogan to a war like Ukraine's, things get complicated fast. So when Trump and Zelensky sat down, there was tension in the air. Zelensky wanted more aid, more weapons, more promises. Trump wanted a deal, or at least a strategy that wouldn't drain America's resources. It wasn't exactly a friendly meeting. And if you read between the lines of Trump's statements afterward, he basically said, "I'll help Ukraine, but not like before. The blank check days are over." For Zelensky, that was a gut punch. For Trump supporters, it was common sense. And for the rest of the world, it was a signal that U.S. foreign policy might be about to change again. Here's where it gets interesting. Zelensky and Trump don't just disagree on policy. They live in completely different realities. For Zelensky, this war is existential. He's not fighting for influence, he's fighting for survival. He believes that if Ukraine falls, it's not just Ukraine's problem. It's the start of a new age of aggression, one where Russia, China, and other authoritarian regimes feel emboldened to take whatever they want. To him, defending Ukraine is defending the free world. But Trump, he doesn't buy that narrative. In his mind, the real war is the one America's fighting at home, against inflation, illegal immigration, political division, and economic decay. He looks at Ukraine and says, why are we sending billions of dollars over there when so many Americans can't afford groceries or rent? And honestly, whether you like him or not, that's a question a lot of Americans are asking. Polls show that support for U.S. aid to Ukraine has been steadily declining. In 2022, a majority of Americans supported sending weapons and funding to help Ukraine defend itself. Now, less than 40% do. And among Republicans, that number is even lower. So Trump's stance isn't just political rhetoric. It's rooted in a growing frustration that America keeps getting pulled into conflicts that seem endless and unsustainable. But here's the catch. Trump also knows that if the U.S. walks away completely, the consequences could be disastrous. Russia would see it as a green light. Europe would panic. And America's credibility as a global leader would take a serious hit. So, what's Trump's plan? According to his closest advisors, it's simple. Make peace fast. He's been saying that from day one, that he can end the war in 24 hours if he were president again, that he'd sit Putin and Zelensky down and hammer out a deal. Now, is that realistic? Maybe not. But it's classic Trump, bold, transactional, and focused on optics. He wants to look like the deal maker who brought peace, not the politician who funded another endless war. To understand where both men are coming from, you have to understand what the war in Ukraine has become. When it started, it was clear-cut. Russia invaded, Ukraine defended. The world rallied around Kyiv. Sanctions hit Moscow, and Western governments promised unity and strength. But 3 years later, the narrative is crumbling. Ukraine's counteroffensives haven't achieved the breakthroughs many hoped for. Russia still controls large parts of the country. And behind closed doors, Western officials are starting to admit what they don't dare say publicly, that Ukraine can't win this war outright, not without massive new commitments from the West, not without risking escalation, and not without accepting the possibility of direct confrontation between NATO and Russia, a nightmare scenario that no one wants. This is where Trump's logic hits home. He's saying out loud what many policymakers are whispering. We need an exit strategy. Zelensky, though, can't say that, not politically, not emotionally. He's a wartime president. The moment he starts talking about compromise, his legitimacy collapses. His soldiers are still dying. His people are still fighting. To back down now would feel like betrayal. So, you have one leader trapped by circumstance, and another trapped by ideology. Zelensky can't stop fighting. Trump can't keep paying. Something's got to give. Now, let's be fair. Trump isn't anti-Ukraine. He's not pro-Russia, the way some of his critics claim either. What he is pragmatic, maybe even brutally so. He looks at foreign policy like a businessman looks at a balance sheet. What's the cost? What's the return? He's been consistent about this since his first campaign. Remember when he called NATO obsolete, or when he said America shouldn't be fighting other people's wars? That's not isolationism. It's transactional nationalism. It's saying, if we're spending money, we better get something back. And in Trump's mind, Ukraine doesn't give America much back. No new markets, no major resources, no strategic military bases. Meanwhile, Russia and China are forming tighter alliances. Europe keeps demanding U.S. leadership, but often refuses to pay its fair share. And Trump's thinking, why are we footing the bill for everyone else's problems? That resonates deeply with his voter base, especially working-class Americans who feel like they've been left behind by globalization and foreign wars. But politically, it's a risky line to walk. Because while Americans are tired of war, they also don't want to look weak. They don't want Putin or Xi Jinping to think the United States is backing down. So Trump's strategy has to balance strength with restraint. If he pulls out of Ukraine completely, he'll be accused of appeasing dictators. If he stays too long, he'll be accused of betraying his America First promise. Either way, it's a political minefield. Let's talk about Zelensky for a second. When the war started, he was hailed as a hero, a former comedian who became the face of resistance against tyranny. He stood in the streets of Kyiv, wearing olive green, telling the world, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. It was powerful, emotional, and for a while, it worked. But now, his image is wearing thin. Critics are starting to ask tough questions about corruption, about transparency, about how all the billions in Western aid are being spent. Ukraine's government has had to reshuffle key officials multiple times amid allegations of graft, and Western donors are getting nervous. Zelensky's trapped in a paradox. He needs more help from the West, but the more he asks for, the weaker he looks. And as soon as he stops asking, the money dries up. That's the dilemma of dependency. It's not just about tanks and missiles, it's about credibility. The truth is, Ukraine's survival now depends as much on Washington's politics as on its own soldiers. And that's a dangerous place for any country to be. So where does this leave us, the United States? Here's the bigger picture. America is facing a new kind of global order, one where power is shifting fast. China's rising. Russia's still dangerous. Europe is divided. And the developing world is increasingly skeptical of Western promises. For decades, the U.S. was the undisputed leader, the nation everyone looked to in a crisis. But now, after Iraq, Afghanistan, and countless other interventions, that confidence has eroded. Many Americans feel that our global leadership hasn't made us stronger. It's made us poorer and more divided. So when Trump says, "Let's take care of America first," he's tapping into something real. A sense that we've done our duty. Maybe too much of it, and it's time for others to step up. The question is, can we step back without letting chaos fill the vacuum? That's what's at stake in this debate. Because if America retreats too far, we risk losing the world order we built. If we stay too involved, we risk repeating the mistakes of the past. It's a lose-lose game unless we find a new balance, a smarter, more strategic way to engage. And that's where Trump's unpredictability could actually work in his favor. He doesn't play by the old rules. He doesn't care about diplomatic niceties or international consensus. That drives traditional politicians crazy, but it also means he might be the only one willing to make bold moves to reset the table. Can Trump really end the war in 24 hours, like he claims? Realistically, no. This conflict is too deep, too complex, too bloody for a quick fix. But what he can do is change the incentives. He can pressure Ukraine to accept negotiations. He can push Europe to take on more responsibility. He can use economic leverage to corner Russia. Peace isn't always about moral purity. Sometimes it's about exhaustion. And frankly, everyone in this war is exhausted. Ukraine's out of resources. Russia's bleeding men and money. Europe's facing energy crises. And Americans are just tired of hearing about it. So maybe, just maybe, Trump's deal-making instinct could create an off-ramp that career politicians haven't found. Would it be fair to Ukraine? Probably not entirely. Would it save lives? Probably yes. And that's the moral gray zone where real-world politics happens. Here's what I think. We're entering a phase where foreign policy and domestic politics are completely intertwined. How a president handles Ukraine, China, or even border security isn't just about strategy, it's about survival in the polls. Zelensky will keep fighting because he has no other choice. Trump will keep promising peace because that's what voters want to hear. And somewhere in the middle, the rest of the world is holding its breath. Because if the United States changes course, everything changes. Europe's defense plans, NATO's strategy, global markets, even China's next move toward Taiwan. It all hinges on whether America decides to lead or to step back. Here's the uncomfortable truth. There's no clean ending to this story. No good guys and bad guys in black and white. Only shades of gray. Zelensky's bravery is real, but so are his political limits. Trump's pragmatism is real, but so is his unpredictability. And we, the American people, are caught in between. We want peace, but we also want strength. We want security, but we don't want to pay for it forever. We want to believe that democracy will prevail, but we're not sure it still can. That's the world we live in now. Complicated, messy, and deeply human. So what happens next? Trump has returned to the White House. Expect a major shift in U.S. foreign policy. Not total isolationism, but selective engagement. Fewer blank checks, more deals, more conditions. And if Zelensky can adapt, if he can prove that peace doesn't have to mean surrender, maybe there's still hope. But if both men keep holding their ground, refusing to bend, then we're looking at a prolonged stalemate, one that drains everyone involved. At the end of the day, it's not about who's right or wrong. It's about whether we, as a nation, still know what we're fighting for. Because if we've lost that, then maybe we've already lost more than we realize. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Do you think Trump's plan for Ukraine makes sense? Or is it just another political promise that won't survive reality? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, take care, stay informed, and as always, keep thinking for yourself.